So I wanted to show you the difference between these two. So I just got Nixit in the mail. It came with this custom tissue paper, which is pretty neat. And I just wanted to show you. So this is a nice little card that they put on top. It was nicely wrapped and everything. And so the reason why I got this, I have used the Diva Cup before. I am looking for an alternative to using tampons and pads. I'm using my own reusable pads, but for tampons it's very tricky. The reason why I am trying this is because it's for 12-hour protection for super tampons worth. So sometimes, like on my really heavy days, that might be like, I guess maybe like 8 hours. I don't know. Would have to see. We're just gonna try. So it's good. It's plastic free. You can choose the color of the box, which it doesn't, to me, make so much of a difference. And so it comes in a really nice looking box and it flips up. And it comes with an instruction manual, and it is quite large for what it is. I have used other menstrual cups and they have been smaller but deeper, where this one is definitely a different shape. So it will be interesting. You're supposed to squeeze it like that and insert it. It is on the more expensive price point, probably double to what other menstrual cups I bought, but if it does work and does provide relief for not having to buy tampons for the next couple years, then it'll be worth it. So it just really depends. It also, I had a look, it comes with a little cloth bag in here too, because obviously I wouldn't be keeping it in the little box here. It does tell you to boil it for 5 minutes in between your periods. So I just did that. So they had a really great recommendation of trying to put it in when you don't have your period in the shower, just to get the correct fitting, the correct posture of it, and then it'll be a lot easier for when you switch it out. So day one of the Nixit, I had my period today, so it's really late, usually on the first maybe day or two. So I did it today. It was a little bit awkward, I would say. It wasn't painful, but it was quite wide, and inserting it and then positioning your legs really, and then putting it in, and then it expands. So it was kind of a little bit nerve-wracking just how far back behind the pelvis. So I did have to push it in a bit further when I went to the washroom, just because it wasn't as far back as I guess it could have been behind my pelvic bone. So I took it out just to see what was in it and how it was sitting and everything. And it was just a little bit daunting having to try to pull it out, where with other cups, they have like a little thing at the bottom where it's actually like a cylinder shape, so you can pull it out. But since this one is so concave, it's just going to take a little bit to not be so awkward taking it out. And I did need to have a sink nearby to wash it out, so it does need to be washed, where the other ones I've tried, you can just kind of dump it out, and if there isn't a sink, it's not super bad. But I felt like this one, maybe because it's just my first day, second time putting it back in was much easier. So it's day 2. Yesterday was my first overnight with it in. I did wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was one of those like wake up and be like, I think I'm bleeding through. So I did have a pad on with it, and I was in bed for 6 hours at that time. So either just sleeping or resting. So I think I went to bed at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock and just did some reading and stuff, and then woke up at 3 a.m. and yeah, so there was I can't tell if it's like spillage, like say if it was too full, or if it was just like if it slides down a bit, it seems like it spills. So depending on how, I don't know, the deep of your hip bone is, I guess, and then you would tuck it underneath. So if that slides down a bit, then it seems to leak out a bit. So I don't know if that was the case, or if I just like, it was just full. So I did change it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I got up, I think at 6:30 or 7, and then it also went through again. In the 3 o'clock one, it was pretty heavy, like how much was in there. Also, getting it out on a heavy period, not getting it all over your hand that you're trying to get it out, it is difficult for me for some reason to get it out. I did have like this like a little bit of a panic that it was like it was too far in, or I just couldn't grab it. It's a really awkward position because it's like a soup bowl, right? So it's just so long and wide, and there's nothing to grab onto. So I did have problems with that, and I got it all over my hand. And so I have my sink obviously right in front of me, so that wasn't a big deal. But if I was out in public, like that would be a thing. So I had a problem also because it's like a soup bowl, that it's just so long and wide compared to like a cup. So that was, I don't know how I would get it out. I've taken it out 3 times now this morning. So one at 3, one at 6, and then one, it's just before 9 right now in the morning. So I just took it out because I noticed it was spotting a bit. So I don't think I pushed it in all the way. Anyhow, I tried to get it out even with just a bit in, and I thought it was full when I took it out just now, and it wasn't. So just because you can feel like that there's fluid in there, but it says it should be 4 super tampons worth of flow. So on my really heavy days, I have this one heavy day, and it usually lasts maybe like in the evening or the morning. It doesn't last the full day, and I've been to lots of doctors about it and naturopaths, and doctors usually tell me to go on birth control if you want the flow to be lighter, and naturopaths, I've been put on so many different things and nothing's really working out. So I just had to like adapt. This one day I have to change my tampon like every hour, and it's not the full day, but every hour, hour and a half, and then I just maybe have to do it for like 2 or 3 times, and then that's it. Then it just becomes like a regular normal flow where I change it 2 to 3 hours. So yesterday in the morning time, it was a bit tricky to get it in and stay in without the leakage. So I had to keep on readjusting it. So I got it in, and then about like 5-10 minutes later I could feel it leaking, so it wasn't obviously pushed far enough in. I had to readjust that like 3 times I think. And that was kind of annoying because I would be doing something and I could feel it leaking and then have to come back to the washroom, readjust it. I mean, I'm at home so it's fine, but it was just in this short amount of time, just going to the washroom and redoing everything. So that was definitely a con, just getting used to it and how far up the pubic bone. Then I had about 3 or 4 hours where it was in, and then it started leaking. So I don't know if it was, I'm guessing it was a really heavy day for me yesterday. So I would say that's maybe like 2 tampon worth. It could be even before, I have no idea. I mean, then I'd be changing a tampon every hour, which is possible. So after 3 or 4 hours, it did leak. And then I went to bed and it was completely fine. I hadn't had any problems so far this morning, no problems with it either. I'm still having a little bit of a tricky time getting it out. Pull it out, but it's kind of awkward, and so sometimes it spills like on your hands and stuff. So the only time I didn't have that problem when it was like really pushed forward, so when it was already coming out, then I was able to do it without kind of grabbing it and trying to figure out a way to sort of finessely get it out. But it's still a bit tricky trying to pull it out and not have it dump all over your hands. I did notice also if I went to go pee with it, it does slide it down a bit just because you're sitting differently. And so if you're able to like push it back up, that's fine. If it's too far down like your pelvic bone, you just have to take it out, which is kind of a negative. So it is, I think, day 4. So yesterday was completely fine. I wore it for I think about like 6 hours, and then I checked on it. Basically, I don't think it was leaking at that point. So yeah, I could probably do it on a later day, probably a full day, like the full 12 hours like they said. I wore it overnight, was no problem at all. I am still having a problem if it's not full enough, like if it doesn't slide down the pelvic bone and I just want to check on it, or like overnight, I wore it overnight completely fine, and then I must be like having a really light day, because even this morning it was really difficult to get it out, just because it's not filling up and it's not sliding down further for me to reach it, and it's just this awkward, it's really awkward to get out still. So it's not awkward to get in, I'm totally fine with that, but I'm still having a problem getting it out. So usually my period lasts about 5 days. If I'm wearing a tampon, sometimes what I've noticed, and like I noticed this a long time ago, my periods will last for 7 days if I wore a tampon in, because tampons are actually like meant to make you bleed, so that it actually has moisture in there, so it's just not directly on your dry skin. So usually on my last couple of days, just because they are so light, I wear like just a pad, or I just wear a lighter tampon, and that usually works out well. Or yeah, I just usually wear a pad if it's super light. So I thought I had this trick of like tilting my pelvic bone forward when I was sitting, and it would just like I would be able to take it out, and I did it once and I didn't spill anything. It came out beautifully, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a trick. I just need to like tilt my pelvic bone forward and then do it this way. And then I tried to recreate it, and I can't. I haven't been able to recreate it. So it's day 5 today. Yesterday I had a really light day, so I was able to keep it in from the morning time to nighttime. And I didn't have any spotting or anything that was coming out, or any leakage, which was really great. Though at the end of the day, because I wasn't bleeding as much, I wasn't menstruating as much at all, it was really hard to get out. Like I couldn't actually get it out no matter what I did, no matter how I positioned my pelvis. So I actually just waited, and then when I had a shower at night, I ended up trying to like position myself in all these different ways to be able to grab it. I think I'm also a little bit afraid of like, I don't want to like, again, grab it with my fingernails and it will rip or something like that. So it probably can take a lot more punishment than I'm giving it. So I'm not using it today. It's super light today, so I'm just have a little pad in there, and it works out fine. So in this whole process, I was comparing it basically to the Diva Cup, because I've used that before, maybe like 10 years ago. And the Diva Cup, I was going through some bodily changes where I was in this weird anemic phase, which I am still slowly, but it was just this really like heavy bleeding, and so the Diva Cup was not going to work. So, but I am comparing it like internally, because I know how the Diva Cup, like I am comparing this product with tampons, but they're not really equivalent because it's completely different, which Diva Cup is more toward this product of what it is. It's basically the same thing, but shaped differently. So for my next period, I'll use the Diva Cup and then compare the two. So I wanted to show you the difference between these two. So this is the Diva Cup, and I just put water in it because I dumped it in here just to see how much it would hold. On the inside of the Diva Cup, it does have measurements, so you can actually see. Again, this is an older one that I got, so because I've had it for such a long time, I don't know if there's any difference between them, and between this one and like a new one. So the Diva Cup has 2 models, and this one is for people who haven't had a child. So once you've had a child, they do make them in a larger size. So but you can see the considerable difference between the Nexit and the Diva Cup. The mouth is completely different. The structure of the base is completely different, and how much it holds as well. So I'll just fill it up. Alright, so I filled it up. Inside there's actually a marker. So I filled it up to this line, which is the 15 milliliter line. And hopefully this doesn't spill over. So I'm just going to add this to here. So as you can see, it's still got some extra room So that would be, what, 15 milliliters. So I think it could hold a lot more, obviously, but we shall try on the next period. Alright, it is another month and I have my period. I got it yesterday. I just put a pad on just because it was so light. And then at nighttime I put the Diva Cup in. The Diva Cup is definitely thicker around the top. The Diva Cup, it did take a little bit getting used to because you really have to scrunch it together and push it up. When the Nixit, you kind of just put it together and insert it. So definitely it's easier to do it with the Nixit. It is the morning time now and I did take out the Diva Cup just so I could see how full it was and then put it back in for the day. So taking it out was really easy, no problems. It does feel like a lot thicker material, like the silicone of it. So it was just a little bit of I think a shock to get it out. But it held up really nice because it is a cup. I didn't have any spilling or anything. It wasn't full or anything like that. It wasn't even halfway full. So I emptied that out. And if I didn't have a sink by, it still would have been okay. I would be able to just dump out the contents in the toilet and then probably reinsert it. I mean, it's not always ideal, but if you're in a situation where there isn't a sink in your washroom, then that's always, you know, something that can happen. So it's still day one. It is 1:30 now. This morning when I filmed it was 8:30, so that's when I changed it, and then I did some video and then went off to yoga and then did a bunch of household things. I did notice I was leaking a bit. I do have a pad on just to see because I can't remember how long it lasts. So I did have to change it at 1:30 now. So it was full. So that's just basically like maybe 2 super tampons worth of fluid, maybe 1. Having a little bit of an issue with putting it in, so that just might be something to think about, but definitely it lasted me only until 1:30, so about not even halfway through my day. Good morning. It is the next morning. So yesterday, in the afternoon, I started getting really bad cramps and started to actually bleed a lot heavier. So it was a bit annoying because about every 2 hours I had to dump it out because it was starting to be too full. So, and that's a pretty heavy period for me. At nighttime, I was really worried because I was still hitting that 2-hour mark, and you know, you obviously sleep more than 2 hours. I didn't want to have to get up multiple times during the night. So I did put in the Nexit last night because it just holds a lot more. The Diva Cup, it doesn't hold as much, and with 2 hours of it overflowing, I knew that like I wouldn't last a whole night or to have to get up multiple times during the night. So I just made that decision. I really wanted to do the Diva Cup my whole period, but maybe it's gonna be like a combination of both. So for some reason I am still bleeding pretty heavy this morning, so I still have the Nexit in and not using the Diva Cup. Once it gets a bit lighter, I'll switch back to the Diva Cup just to get, you know, like the full experience, trying to do it for the majority of my period. Alright, so it's been a couple of days, so I think I left off where I was wearing the Nexit and I wasn't wearing the Diva Cup. I continued that throughout the whole day, just because I didn't want to have to continuously change it. Then the next day I ended up going to Tofino and doing some surfing. So because there were just outhouses there, I switched back to tampons. I didn't go back to the Diva Cup. The Diva Cup does feel like it's a little bit like pulling or scraping when I do take it out, so it's not as comfortable to take out and put in as the Nexit. So when I was in Tofino, I went to the shop in the Den in Ucluelet actually, and they had sea sponges, which is like a tampon but a sponge version. So they're grown in Asia, and I was trying to find them. They're by no means new things. I was trying to find them. They're from Asia, and I was trying to find someone who imported them locally. So in the den and you cue it, I have bought one, so we shall try it out for the next period in a different video, and then we will see how that compares. Now these do break down and you do have to moisten them to get them going, and you would have to have a sink nearby because when you take it out you have to rinse it out. So my final thoughts is the Diva Cup. On my light days, I would wear the Diva Cup on the lighter days just because you're able to put it in, leave it all day on your really light days, take it out, and it's really easy to take in and out, and you don't get all that extra fluids on your hands when you're taking it out. There's no real spillage. So if you're not near a sink and you're just in a washroom and you're just in a stall, that's what I would use. On my heavier days, if I was in a place where there was a sink in the same washroom, or if I was at home, I would use the Nexit. It's just way easier, it does hold a lot more, and you're able just to have that control of the sink, because every single time, I think only one time, I was able to not spill it and get it all over my hands. When I say get it all over my hands, to the point where I can't take it off, like it's stained because of how much spilled out onto my hands. Like, no amount of toilet paper, it does need to be washed. That's what I mean. The Diva Cup, there is some spillage, but it's totally manageable without washing it right away. So I'd feel comfortable being in a stall with the Diva Cup, not the Nexit. So, and then if I was on my lighter days, probably go with the Diva Cup. If I was the only reason that I wouldn't wear the Nexit on my lighter days is because I did have a problem getting it out on the really, really light days, just because of that suction. I've heard also that the Diva Cup, there are some suction issues as well, like people have a really hard time getting it out the first couple times. So that could be also the reason for the Nexit as well. I could just be needing more practice, but it just felt like because it wasn't dropping, there wasn't enough fluids to drop it down further. It was really hard. It is thinner material, like thinner silicone, so it's not like you can use your fingernails to pinch it out, just because it's gonna really slip, or it's going to, like, I felt like it's gonna puncture it, even though I probably wasn't. So for the price point though, Nexit is really expensive compared to the Diva Cup, so that's always something to take into consideration. I would like it to mash up. I heard that there was also a third type of Diva Cup that might be a little bit nicer in the thickness of the silicone, so I think that might be a go to try that. So I'm not writing off the Diva Cup quite yet. It doesn't hold as much fluid though as the Nexit, so I'm more concerned about my heavier days, obviously. So I think the Diva Cup has maybe a longer lifespan for the silicone as well, just because it is thicker, so that's always to take into consideration, just depending on your type of flow, how often, how long it is, all those different things. So for me, I think I'm just going to continuously switch between them. Anything that really cuts down the use of tampon use is always the best. If you do have to use tampons, then you know you're using tampons, but it doesn't have to be for your whole period. It can be a combination of all 2 or 3 or however you do it. And so let me know if you have any tips on which period cups work the best for you, why you like them, why you don't like them, what you've tried, and yeah, just let me know how everything is going. So I hope that answers some of your questions, and that you are also on this eco-friendly journey just to use less, and because we use it so much every month, and that we're able to reduce our waste by any means possible.